Imagine being a 23-year-old actress, having the world at your feet, and getting cast in one of the biggest Disney live-action remakes. You've been called the next big thing in Hollywood. Everyone is watching you, expecting you to carry this massive project. Then, months later, you're sitting in a nearly empty theater, watching your own movie crash and burn in real time. That's exactly what Rachel Zegler faced on March 25, 2025. But that's not all. Her highly anticipated Snow White remake, one of the most expensive Disney projects in years, didn't just flop. It vanished into oblivion, and Disney's multi-million-dollar gamble was officially a disaster.
And to everyone who hates when I win, the winged victory came to the Louvre in pieces, and people still line up to see her. And I can only hope that despite my flaws, and despite my cracks and my breaks, and there are many of them, that at every premiere and everything I do, people will wait in line to see.
The box office numbers were embarrassing, the critics tore the film apart, and the internet didn't hold back. In fact, Zegler and a few loyal friends were practically the only people in the theater when they went to watch it. And thanks to Instagram, we got a front row seat to this epic cringe fest. Let's break it all down. Now let's talk about the numbers. Snow White wasn't just a box office failure, it was an expensive failure. How expensive? The movie cost over $250 million to make before marketing. That's more than some of the biggest films of the decade. But here's the kicker. Despite the massive budget and Disney's worldwide promotional campaign, the film couldn't even manage to break $43 million on opening weekend. To put that in perspective, The Little Mermaid remake made $95 million in its opening weekend just the year before, and even Dumbo, yes Dumbo, earned more with a significantly smaller budget. Gets worse. Disney wasn't just losing money on this project, they were watching their reputation take a serious hit.
Behind the scenes, you guys know as well as I do that those executives like Spielberg are looking at that, saying, Rachel Zegler can F right off.
Hollywood has seen flops before, but rarely do you see a film with such a high budget vanish as fast as this one. What happened? Now let's paint the picture of how Zegler and her friends experienced this flop firsthand. March 25, 2025, Zegler, along with a small group of friends including Isla Mason, Jorge Mason, Remy, and Maria Isabel Demison, went to see Snow White in theaters. But here's the catch, this wasn't just any screening. The theater? Barely any other souls in sight. But listen to this. Thanks to Instagram, we got a peek at how Zegler's night unfolded. In an awkwardly viral Instagram story, you could see Zegler's friends yelling her name as her name flashed on the screen. Zegler awkwardly laughed, almost as if to brush off the awkwardness, but you could tell she was cringing inside. It wasn't a proud moment. Was the theater rented out for Zegler and her friends to watch the film privately?
I mean, you know, the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird. So we didn't do that this time.
Was it just a result of the disastrous box office numbers? It's hard to say, but what we do know is that there weren't many people in that theater, and Zegler's attempts to salvage the situation didn't do much to hide how uncomfortable it all was. To make matters worse, they even jumped into a viral trend where they asked a Regal employee for 2 tickets, please. When the employee innocently asked, "For which movie?" the camera panned to Zegler and her group holding their Snow White-themed popcorn bucket and souvenir cup. Confusion was obvious. Crew was trying so hard to keep the mood light and fun, but you could almost feel the tension behind the smiles. And the flowers Zegler was holding? Most likely a sympathy gift from her friends, because at this point the movie was sinking faster than the infamous poisoned apple. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, the internet stepped in. Social media didn't hold back. Critics jumped on this train, taking to Twitter, X, Instagram, and even TikTok to roast Snow White into oblivion. The memes were endless. One user summed it up perfectly. "Welcome back to reality, princess." Gets crazier. But it wasn't just random internet trolls piling on. These were legitimate critiques from film critics who had been waiting for Snow White to arrive, only to be deeply disappointed by the final product. The movie wasn't just bad, it was embarrassingly bad, especially when you look at the numbers. To make matters worse, a clip of Zegler resurfaced from an interview she did years earlier where she boldly declared that people would line up to see her films, no matter her flaws. "People will wait in line to see me despite my flaws and cracks," she said, referring to her hope for audiences to support her no matter what. But as the receipts showed and the internet eagerly roasted her, that statement didn't age well. Fast forward to March 2025, and Zegler wasn't watching long lines form outside theaters. She was watching an empty theater with the film floundering. As if the box office failure wasn't enough, behind the scenes, things were already spiraling. Rachel Zegler had been at the center of multiple controversies leading up to Snow White's release.
You're progressive in one way, but you're still making that f***ing backward story of 7 dwarves living in a cave. What the f*** are you doing, man?
From the get-go, Disney execs were uneasy about Zegler's outspoken comments, particularly her criticism of the original Snow White cartoon. In interviews, she had called the classic 1937 Snow White storyline weird, specifically pointing out the stalkerish nature of the romance between Snow White and Prince Charming. It didn't sit well with die-hard fans of the original, and many wondered, if you hate the story so much, why take the role? But that's not all. The real trouble began when Zegler used her platform to inject her personal politics into the film's promo tour. Disney's D23 event, Zegler had been all smiles but ended her gratitude post with a bold and unexpected political statement. Caused immediate panic among Disney's executives. The movie, a massive $270 million project, had just been dragged into a political storm that no one was prepared for. And things were about to get even worse. Let's talk about the relationship between Zegler and her co-star Gal Gadot.
That is totally uplifting and the right way to be woke, Link, when you actually canceled the roles for the marginalized population because just putting them on screen is somehow racist.
While they were all smiles during filming, the relationship quickly soured as the release date approached. Zegler's social media posts had already raised eyebrows, but things reached a boiling point when Zegler threw a backhanded jab at Gadot during the 2025 Oscars. On Instagram, she referred to Gadot as a professional pageant queen, a comment many perceived as dismissive and downright shady. The internet was quick to jump on the drama, and insiders at Disney confirmed that the relationship between the two stars was becoming increasingly tense. But wait, there's more. Zegler's outspoken political stances, particularly her support for Palestine, created an even more difficult situation. Gadot, an Israeli actress and former Israeli soldier, found herself at the receiving end of serious backlash. This wasn't just online hate, it escalated to threats against her safety, which prompted Disney to hire extra security for her. Zegler didn't seem to understand the repercussions of her posts, and it became clear that her behavior was causing chaos not only for the film but for her co-star and Disney as a whole. As the controversies mounted, Disney was hemorrhaging money on Snow White. The film had already incurred costly reshoots, and Zegler's endless string of controversial takes had only made things worse. Company was trying to salvage a sinking ship, but it was becoming increasingly clear that the film was beyond saving. But listen to this. Then came Zegler's infamous post following the US presidential election, "May Trump supporters never know peace." Disney execs went into full-blown damage control mode. At this point, Snow White was already in trouble, and Zegler's social media antics were only alienating half the potential audience. Disney knew they couldn't afford to lose any more support for a film already in the red. In a last-ditch effort to prevent further backlash, producer Mark Platt flew out to personally meet with Zegler, not once but twice. They brought in a social media expert to help Zegler get her posts under control. Every post leading up to the release had to be approved, but by then it was clear that Snow White was fighting an uphill battle. The damage had been done. With everything spiraling, Disney knew they had to scale back. Instead of a grand, glitzy premiere, they opted for a low-key event. The usual red carpet glamour was replaced with a quiet daytime pre-party on March 15th, followed by an unadvertised screening in a northern Spanish castle. Rumors swirled that Disney execs were afraid to have another disastrous PR event on their hands, so they kept the premiere as low-key as possible. Gets worse. The movie was doomed, and even Disney knew it. There was no fanfare, no stars shining. It was a quiet, muted affair, and if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it altogether. So what went wrong? How did Disney get it so wrong? Was it Zegler's controversial political views? The lack of chemistry with her co-stars? The fact that they didn't understand the growing cultural backlash against reboots and live-action remakes? Maybe it was all of it. But the reason this is happening is simple. Snow White serves as a cautionary tale. It's a story about how ambition and politics collided with the cold, hard realities of the entertainment industry. It's a reminder that no amount of money or star power can save a project that's fundamentally flawed from the start. So, what do you think? Was this the end of Disney's live-action remake experiment, or will they try again? Let me know in the comments below what went wrong with Snow White.